Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silk Olajide.
And I am Gary Stretcher.
Hey, what's up, Gary? What's
Good
up,
to see you,
man?
Gary. You're
How
in
are you,
sunny
sir?
LA now this time.
Ben, you've been following me all around the world.
Absolutely.
I tell you what, I've left England, I've left Bulgaria, but every country I get to, I always call Ben because he's been my savior when I'm trying to watch links to fights because I can never get a fight in different countries. And I say, Ben, I'm sorry to disturb you all hours of the night. And Ben gets online and gets me a link to a fight, which would lead me into the subject that Ben, I know he hates, is the YouTube boxing fight, which is just happened.
I was gonna ask you exactly what you call him when you call him, because I know a few people that have called him a few things, but
What?
maybe you call him something differently.
Cool. What are you talking about?
Nothing.
Oh, we get it. He said I've called Ben whatever country I'm in. I've called Ben, and he's like, "What do you call him?" It's one of them out there jokes from the Silk again. You got to ease into these things.
I
Silk.
just simply call Ben, and I say, "Hi Ben, can you help me?" And he normally helps me, but I don't call him any particular name.
So here's the thing, then, Gary. My thing is charisma and marketing in boxing. In the old days, way back in the day, it used to be a case of like a young Cassius Clay or a Sugar Ray Leonard. Their charisma helped package the amazing product. That Cassius Clay had leapfrogged his way to a shot at Sonny Liston over more deserving contenders because of style and profile and personality. We seem to have gone crazy with that whole ethos today, where the point where the talent and the credibility and no longer matters, and it's all about marketing. And some people have said that what this proved last night, because there was 2 world title fights going on last night. Tim Tszyu defended his WBO title against Brian Mendoza, unanimous decision. And Janibek Beck, I don't even know how you say his surname, Alim Kanuli, the Kazakhstani southpaw, who actually looks really good. I've actually watched him properly for the first time last night. And they were told in a relative obscurity while everyone was talking about the circus on DAZN. Now, some people have said boxing has itself to blame for this situation because of all the ills of professional boxing. These people are proving that that how you market something into a fun event that people want to watch. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, you know what? Can I just say something really quickly?
It's
been around
since the beginning
of time. Sorry, if I say something really quickly. This has been around since the beginning of time. There's tough man contests that go back to the 70s and probably circus boxing from the 60s. So like now that you have guys with personalities and they're challenging each other and everything, and it's really nothing new. I mean, that's exactly what tough man contests are. They're non-professional boxers who don gloves and fight each other and talk all sorts of crap beforehand. It's just that now we have such a we have social media and it's connected, and so it makes, we're offended by the money they make, but it just naturally makes sense. The more people that watch it, you get paid for it. It's not a big deal. It doesn't tell me that they're any good at what they do. All it means is they make more money than the average boxer. That's all there is to it.
Gary,
can I chip in?
Please chip away.
Well, I'm partial with Ben. Ben's a purist. He likes the fight game. He's comes from a background of professional boxing and he respects the sport. But I have to say, boys, these guys are serious athletes. I mean, they really are. They get great trainers. They work hard. They've these guys I believe they take the sport serious, and as much as the circus that it is, they actually do a certain work ethic to get there. So,
I mean, fear will do that.
Well, no, it's like they take a certain amount of these guys are not playing at it. They really do try to get ready for whatever fight they get involved in, and so
Of course, but they're not.
How did that play out last night?
It's not what we want it to be, but still, I have to give them a certain amount of respect for the work they do. You know.
Yeah, I understand that and I respect that. But look, I remember
like KSI or Jake Paul would beat your average 5-fight professional boxer. I would say.
No.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't
not
think
if he's
so. There's
talented.
no way. If Michael,
No.
well, you know, even Michael is like 60, right? I think, and I'm only saying this because I don't want to put myself in it. If Michael fought, you know, either of them, he beat him today, tomorrow, or next week
with an eye patch.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I mean, I didn't watch it all because I don't want to watch it all, but I had a little look, Gary, because if I avoid it completely, then I can't fully comment because I don't know what I'm talking about, can I? So I had to walk that tightrope between not wanting to watch it and not being interested. But I thought I'd have a little look. They were fucking useless, Gary. And we're not just talking about the main event. The other guys down on the card, that Dylan Dennis, did you see him with this? I probably haven't got enough space in my screen to do it. It looked like he was trying to do this.
The undercard was embarrassing, yes.
Yeah. But the thing is...
No, the undercard, you're right. I was embarrassed.
Yeah. So I just think it's a shame that people do buy into this kind of thing. But at the same time, listen, I do understand the criticisms against the boxing industry. Danny Cassius Connor, who was a former Southern area like welterweight champion and a friend of mine I've known for years, he said, listen, Tommy Fury is not he's a novice professional boxer with very little amateur pedigree. He says, so consequently, he is probably facing better opponents within the route he's gone down than he might have done otherwise with some of those knockover jobs that they will give you. He says, all right. He said, no, I'm not really interested in seeing him fight KSI. He said, but I'd rather see him fight KSI than Vladimir Boxrekology, you know. He said, who's had 2 wins
KSI,
and 15 losses. Go on.
As novice he is, he's extremely I know the game. You know the game, Ben. KSI is a fucking extremely unorthodox, difficult opponent to fight for anyone, even a pro boxer. He is a fucking.
I've never seen him fight, so I can't comment on it.
I think
Michael,
got some.
This is a kid.
Yeah.
He's very athletic. He's I hate to say it, but you give me a YouTuber boxer, I'll fight all day. Give me KSI, I would be cautious because the kid's dangerous. He's not orthodox. He's extremely weird, and he's difficult. And I think Tommy Fury faced a really difficult guy, and not only difficult for a round, and difficult for 10 rounds. You can't work him out in a round or two.
They only went 6 rounds, right?
Dangerous the whole night. I thought Tommy did kind of a decent job, but the fight was horrific. It was a grab and hold fight, but
yeah,
but I don't think anyone,
in the back of the head. There's all sorts of things going on.
I don't think anyone would get rid of KSI that quickly. I think it's just extremely awkward and unorthodox.
I don't know that.
So how did he get on with Anthony Yarde or something like that? I'm sure he would knock him out.
Anthony Yarde would blast him out, I think, but
yeah,
I think he would be awkward for a while.
With the star
Anthony Yarde's a bit different, I think.
Well, because what we're talking about now,
Gary,
you're talking about the skills. So when an individual with skills now starts fighting guys that have never boxed before and don't have those skills, and they don't have
hear me out. Anthony Yarde,
he's awkward against a guy who's never fought before.
Anthony Yarde,
maybe he's going to be awkward for a guy that sticks and moves naturally. But
Anthony Yarde is an explosive big banger, so I would expect.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
An average pro would have difficulties with the KSI of the world.
No,
I think
they would not.
An average
Absolutely
pro.
not. No, they wouldn't. No.
Well, look, the thing is, he doesn't fight any, does he? So that's the thing. It's all conjecture. We don't know because he doesn't fight him. He fights a guy Tommy Fury, I don't. If he had an amateur career, I'm not aware of it. People keep saying he's in boxing since he was 6 years old, and he comes from the fighting gypsy clan and all that. But I'm not aware he had any amateur career to speak of. I've seen him turn pro, and I see him knock over a few.
I think he had 10 fights.
Yeah, but check it out, Ben. When you say things like that, and Gary, when you say things like that, what you're doing is you're denying your own pedigree. Gary, your own pedigree, the fact that you fought and you know what it takes to hone a punch, to make that punch, the fact that you can hit somebody and beat somebody who spends every single day of their life perfecting their art and ability, and you're telling me that now you do that, right? You cultivated your style day in, day out. You've been hit, you hit other guys, you learn to slip punches, your body's attuned and adjusted to pugilistic perfection, or your version of it. And then you're saying some guy up off the street that all he does is watch videos and can come and get in the ring with you and give you hell. That's just not reality. It's not reality. There's no way you can do. That's like me saying I can get in there because I've been driving cars since I was 16 years old. I can race, AJ Petty or some race car driver. It's like, it's just not true. I can't. The reality of it is I can't. When it comes down to competition and stuff gets real, I'm not going to be able to mess with any professional athlete or any amateur athlete in any other thing that that I can't do. Boxing's no different.
I get your comment, Silk, but I believe I have enough experience in the fight game to know when someone's difficult or awkward, and I think KSI is pretty difficult, awkward.
Charlie Edwards Charlie Edwards said, when you sometimes spar with a guy who's so bad that you struggle with him because you've got a good skill set and you're used to a different level.
Exactly right, Ben. That's
what Charlie said. He said, I think that's what happened to Tommy. But see, I must admit, I got a down on Tommy Fury right from the off now because I don't see anything. I mean, I look at all that nonsense. I hardly saw any of it, but I saw bits of the build-up and they're in a cage, banging the cage like a pair of queers. And yeah, I said that. I'm very kind of liberal and metrosexual, but I said it because I'm a man and I'm trying to dig you out.
You're going to get us canceled at this rate.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Listen, my brother is gay.
I said there's nothing wrong with a queer.
There's nothing wrong with a queer. There isn't. And, ask anybody who knows me. I have a very liberal attitude towards all that kind of thing. But I will say it to dig someone out because that's the fighting man in me. That's the boxer in me to say, what are you doing that like a pair of queers for? It shouldn't be taken more gravely or seriously.
Ben,
but,
Ben, if we get cancelled, I'm with you, okay?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we might have to literally pretend to be with each other just so we don't get cancelled. But listen.
All right, that's okay.
Do you know? Anyway, let's move on. Did you see the fight, Ben?
No, I wouldn't watch the whole thing. I just saw bits of it, and I saw bits of that Dennis fella with his Floyd Mayweather southpaw, with his arm up like this, doing the shoulder roll, and then flicking a jab like this. I saw that. That was good.
Who did that?
His name's Dylan Dennis. I hate saying these guys' names. I hate saying their names. But he had a jab like this, southpaw. He went like this. It was great. Well, you should have seen it, Silk. You might have learned something.
Well, you know what? It's really interesting because even guys with awkward, very strange styles in boxing, they've done it so much they can make it work for them. I remember when Edwin Rosario came on the scene, and he was boxing like this. He had his elbows up here, and he would be very sharp and hard with his moves, and his elbows were way away from his ribs. And every trainer tells you to keep those elbows down to your ribs and punch from here. And he came out like this. Now, that's unconventional in boxing, but you know what? It worked because he's been doing it. He's cultivated that style. He's been doing it since he was a kid. And so now the advantages you think you have, you don't have unless you're somebody like, who is it, Jose Luis Ramirez, who finally got to him?
Well, they won and lost against each other. Ramirez beat Rosario in a real up-and-down 4-round shootout. But Rosario beat him on another occasion.
But
Chavez was the one
Ramirez beat him first and was able to take advantage of that style with the elbows up here, and it just didn't work for him.
Chavez was the one who really walked Rosario down and put a hurt on him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a masterclass
Yeah.
of infighting, you know. But you're right. Sometimes, you know, when somebody tries to, I remember Nate Campbell, I think it was.
Wait, Ben. Sorry. Can you back up a second? Can you say that the first part of that sentence again?
When we talk about guys who do something unconventional, but
No, not that part. The sentence before.
I don't remember what it was.
You said you started off with something like "you're right."
You're right when you say sometimes a coach, you just wanted that's all you wanted to hear, wasn't it? That you were right. It's like when you kept getting me to say thank you for various acts of kindness when I was in the States. You said I'd learned the value of critical thinking and critical thanking after a weekend with you. But no, you're right when you say that. I remember Nate Campbell saying to Buddy McGirt, or I remember Buddy McGirt describing this conversation. He said, whatever you do, coach, don't fuck with my legs, my stance. Don't tell me my legs aren't wide enough. He goes, don't talk about my balance. I stand the way I stand, and that is the way I do it. And he didn't want to be told something different. You know what I mean? Because sometimes if you give them the conventional wisdom on it, you take away something that they might have, you know?
And that's the thing in boxing. It's like sometimes, like some people will come in. I look in retrospect. I think back to my career when I've had people come into my life and they try to, like in a boxing sense, and they've tried to change some things up, and I've been resistant to it. And in retrospect, now I'm like, that was exactly what I really needed. You know, what I mean? And that's the shame of it. It's like when you listen to somebody else, like, are they going to spoil the ingredients or are they going to make it better? Chances are, if it's missing, it's not existent, and they're telling you, you know,
to get it.
Yeah, it could be it probably is a good thing. I try to now in life. I try to, whenever somebody says something, I analyze it and I
take it on board.
Yeah,
What about you, Gary? Did you ever have a coach try and get you to do something or stop doing something that you felt instinctively wasn't right for you?
My whole career.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know, I'm a right-handed southpaw.
Yeah.
So, you know, most southpaws are left-handed. I was a right-handed southpaw. I felt when I went to the gym as a child, I remember the coach. He said, "Are you left-handed, right-handed?" I said, "Right-handed." Okay, you're orthodox. I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" Well, you stand left foot forward and you hit with your right hand. I said, "Oh, great." So we're doing that, and then I can't remember, but someone mentioned southpaw. I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, that's the other way." He said, "You don't do that. Everyone hates a fucking southpaw." So I said, How you mean?" He said, "No, everyone hates fighting southpaws." So I said, "Okay, I want to be a southpaw." So he trained me the opposite way, and so my whole career was not the conventional way.
Yeah.
And through that career, you know, my natural best, I made it work, and I became a difficult southpaw, and so yeah.
Yeah. It's so yeah. There you go. You're back down here again, Gary. The producer and me didn't like the way your head was cut off.
Yeah. I'm on the phone. My stand didn't work today, so I'm on hand. So
I had a question. Someone asked, "What's in the baking jug?" It's ginger, hot water, and ginger. It's sort of like nursing a cold over here.
I was going to ask you,
water.
What is that part of your secret to look so ludicrously young and vital at the age you are? Because
it does help. It's better than the sugar water I generally drink. That's for sure.
Yeah, because that's the thing. So when I was in the States with you, I see you have milkshakes, I see you have burgers and pork sandwiches, and I'm like, how's this motherfucker look so good on this diet of just what everybody has?
He's a freak. The silk is a freak.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, y'all too kind. Believe me.
Yeah, it's too kind saying he's a freak like that. Listen, guys, I'm not trying to shut down the other conversation. Because I know it was something Gary wanted to talk about in a.
No, Ben, it's a relevant subject. I mean, we can be purists as boxers, but the reality is there was a fight last night. It's a big fight.
But did anybody see Tim Tszyu? Did anybody see Janibek?
I didn't see it. No, you know what? You told me about the fight. You told me to commentate on it. I know Tim Tszyu very well. I think he's a great fighter. He won, right, on points.
Yeah, he won on points, Tim Tszyu. Apparently, it was even enough after 6 rounds. Because Mendoza was the guy who derailed that Sebastian Fundora. Remember the guy was about 7'8" and he was like a light middleweight. Remember Silk?
Yeah.
And this Brian Mendoza was the guy with the left hook counter, right, Silk? With the left hook counter, like you said.
Yeah.
When they throw the jab. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was coming off a decent win. Tszyu apparently was quite economical in the first 6 rounds, and he really stepped it up in the second half of the fight. And that was, he was very dominant, Tim Tszyu. One thing I don't like, I've got to be honest with you. Looks like we lost Gary, by the way.
He'll come back.
But he'll come back. One thing I don't like is Iceman John Scully said this a while ago. They are ruining boxing history. Tszyu was initially the interim champion, blah blah blah, and Jamel Charlo was the WBO. He wasn't just a WBO light middleweight champion. He was the undisputed light middleweight champion. But they stripped Charlo of the belt literally as soon as the first round started with Canelo for whatever reason, and then Tszyu was upgraded to full champion. So he's made his first defense. But you never get that moment of crowning glory, Michael, because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And that's an important part. Listen, when you win a title in the ring, it's absolutely different than being given the title. And
Sure.
And I'm sure somebody like Ken Norton felt the same way when he was more or less given the title after,
Yeah. His fight with Jimmy Young was retrospectively upgraded to a championship fight.
Exactly.
And that was because, why that was? Because Ali wouldn't fight him for the 4th time because he wanted to. It was because Leon Spinks wouldn't fight him.
Yes.
And then because he wanted the rematch with Ali,
Yes.
More money, because obviously Ali had that leverage. And that's why they upgraded. See, this is the thing, right? Because then they upgraded Norton to the WBC champion, and then in his first defense he lost it to Larry Holmes.
Exactly.
So Ken Norton boasts the distinction of being the only world heavyweight champion to lose all 3 world title fights he appeared in. Although I do think he was very unlucky against Ali the 3rd time. I do think he was a little unlucky there that night. But
one of these days I have to really analyze that fight, and all 3 of the fights actually. I just sometimes I just don't want to behold it. I guess I don't want to look at it because I don't want to see something that I wouldn't like. The reality. But
honestly, I remember watching it the first time. We had a show in England called Great Fights of the 1970s, and it would be on, I think, maybe BBC 2. And you would stay up. I would stay up late for it, school days, and I would watch it. And these were you got to remember, these are mythical fights that I'd only read about because I was too young to have caught Ali in full. I guess I could have seen it in 1976, but I didn't. So when about 6 years later, when I'm 12 years old, I'm ready to watch it, and I'm obsessed with boxing. I idolise Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. So there was no way I wanted to see Norton have won that fight. But as a 12-year-old, I watched it on Great Fights of the 70s, and I certainly think that Norton looked like he won it. He was crying afterwards. He broke down in tears. He was so convinced he won it. Harry Carpenter, who was always a very fair-minded old boy and a very big Ali fan, he said, that is not right. That man should be leaving that ring as the world heavyweight champion. But I know that Frank Lotierzo is a good analyst and a big Ali man. He thinks Ali won the fight. We should watch it again, and we should do the scoring of it in some kind of online fashion.
Yeah, I would like to do that. It would be entertaining. I just always... I know there's just something about their mix-in styles as well. Ali and Norton, and they just don't complement one another.
They don't. And Abid Ali, by the way, has just said Yankee Stadium. What a beautiful ambient setting.
Yeah, that was a beautiful setting.
But you're right. I remember reading once. This was harsh, by the way, but there was KO magazine could be a little bit sarcastic back in the day, right? They could be a little bit loose with their kind of dismissal of fighters. And one of them wrote that Ken Norton had one talent in the ring and one talent only. He could make Muhammad Ali look absolutely lousy. He was obviously more talented than that, and he had some good wins, Norton, aside from Ali, of course.
Yeah. He did. He did have some very good wins. I mean, I remember him beat Jerry Quarry. I mean, his fight with Holmes. I don't know if anybody has ever. I don't know if anybody has ever given Holmes. I mean, except for the men who beat him. Um, that kind of tussle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It was, and what a 15th round that was. That
Yeah.
like Rock'em Sock'em robots in the last round, and
Yeah.
I think
So for me, that Holmes fight really qualified Norton. I mean, even though obviously fighting Ali would do it, I always just thought, well, he's kind of like Ali's anti-venom or something. He just that certain type of style, and the fact Ali was a step slower then, and he wasn't necessarily in his prime. So I figured, okay, that's reason enough when you're fighting somebody awkward. They're going to get over on stuff like that. And then he fights people like George Foreman, and he gets blown out of there pretty quick. So I don't know. I had a hard time qualifying a lot of Norton's skills for a long time, but I also know in retrospect now I see that he really did have a really good ability.
Yeah, Joseph Dobrian, your friend of mine, the writer. He had a pretty interesting theory because he's quite smart for a guy who didn't box
Yes.
on this whole kind of business, the sweet science. And he was saying that cross-arm defense of Norton's was a nightmare for a jabber like Ali. I know Ali threw hooks as well, but he threw lots of jabs and lots of straight right hands. He says, but guys like Shavers and Norton would just club him to death, with that style. And I think that was... It's kind of basic and obvious, but one of the obvious things that maybe people overlook, that literally his defense was not geared towards defending hooks so well.
Well, someone as sharp as Ali. See, Ali was very much a sharpshooter and a very accurate puncher, and Ali's looking to hit the chin, and he's not looking to bounce things off the top of your head and all the rest of that kind of stuff. He's looking to catch the chin and turn the hand over and hit extremely accurately. The nose, the chin area, stuff like that, uppercuts. You can't do that against Norton's style. It's Ali's natural style to fight that way. Now you see other guys like Shavers and Foreman and guys that throw overhand rights and throwing uppercuts and body shots, and you know what I mean. So they would have more of their way with somebody like Norton. I honestly couldn't see Norton doing well against somebody like Tyson, for instance. You know what I mean?
No, not at all. I don't think. I don't think at all. And what was I going to say? It would be fascinating, would it not, to see the 60s Ali in with some of the guys, the high-profile guys who gave him trouble in the 1970s. Obviously, it'd be interesting to see him with Frazier, the 1966 version of Ali, let's say. And to see how he'd handle Norton. Would he have handled them a whole lot better?
I believe so, because Ali had like limitless energy in that at that stage. Yeah, and it's not like Norton didn't have the type of hand speed that was intimidating. He'd see it coming. You know what I mean? I if you told me that Ali would stop him anywhere after like the 8th, 9th round, I would be okay with that. I wouldn't have an issue with that at all.
No. Ali has just said, who was the South American who beat Norton? Big upset. I remember who it was too. It was one of those typical Latino names. It was a very typical Latino name, like Dominguez. It wasn't Dominguez, but you know what I mean. It was one of those kind of Garcia type names. And they fought twice.
I'm gonna get this really quick because. Yeah, that's going to bother me.
You remember who's talking about? John Doyle, by the way, says Norton could be vulnerable early. Was KO'd in one by Jose Luis Rodriguez. He got it. John Doyle's got it. Was KO'd in one round by Jose Luis Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Fraser, I said it was very generic, didn't I? And Fraser would also get the upper hand regularly with sparring against Norton because they were both Eddie Futch fighters.
I could never see Norton losing in a fight to Joe Frazier. I'm sorry, Joe Frazier losing in a fight to Ken Norton. I just couldn't see.
Do you know what? It's interesting. There's some footage of Holmes and Frazier sparring, and Frazier is all over him. To be fair, I mean he's like a cheap suit. I mean Larry is having his moments, but it looks like he's under a lot of damn pressure. Like to the point where he ain't comfortable.
Oh, really? I'd love to see that footage. I mean,
I'm gonna find it for you.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that Holmes wasn't your conventional mover. He's like right in front of you, and he has the skills. Like he's not a dancer like Ali was. He wouldn't give himself that distance. He has a boxing upper body and a slugger's lower body. You know what I mean? Like he'd plant his feet and he'd be there. And so for somebody like Joe Frazier, I don't know, if you're not a power puncher as well, like George Foreman, and you're standing right in front of him, I think you're going to have a long night.
It's funny, because Frazier occasionally showed a different style. I think it was the third Quarry fight. When he was boxing and throwing triple jabs and stuff, and on his toes a little bit. I know he had a little bounce anyway, okay. But Frazier, one time, there's a quote attributed to him where he says, "People think I can't box." He said, "Of course I can. I just prefer to go get a man." He says, "I can box. What do you think I've been doing all these years?" But quite simply, my style is to go after you.
Yeah. Aggression is a weapon, and used, at the right times, against the right styles. Like James Toney says, pressure busts pipes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's the thing with pressure, isn't it? And sometimes if you run from a guy, you're only making his day. That's why you've got to see some guys like Canelo. Canelo doesn't like movement because his feet seem kind of slow. You know what I mean? But
they never used to be. I mean, I look back when he was even coming up, when he was fighting, he didn't have slow feet at all. He's got a nice bounce. He's got good. He's got really good movement.
But you remember when Erislandy Lara was very unlucky not to get a win against him back in 2014.
I didn't see that fight.
Going back nearly 9 years now. It is going back 9 years, nearly 10 years, I meant to say. But he had a bit of trouble finding him all night. You know what I mean? I think Lara won the fight personally.
Really?
I think, yeah, for sure. I remember I interviewed Barry Hearn, Eddie's dad, the Monday afterwards, the Thursday afterwards, and we spoke about the fight, just the way you break down current action, all the rest of it, and he said, but Alvarez is the bigger commercial animal, isn't he? It was funny the way he said after that. He said, I mean, I don't mean it's crooked, but there's a natural tendency to veer towards the bigger commercial animal, which was about as succinct a summation of the professional boxing culture as you really.
It does make the promoter's job a lot easier for you to have an undefeated fighter and to keep it that way. But it seems like no matter what, even if you judge a fight fairly and the one who wasn't supposed to win wins, you can always attach your wagon to him, to the fighter who wasn't supposed to win, who wins. If you attach your wagon to him, you know what I mean? You get a chance to.
Yeah, well, they said that was Don King's thing, right? That was Don King's modus operandi, supposedly. Everybody talks about the famous scenario when he went to the Foreman Frazier fight in Jamaica. He went with Frazier, the champion, and left with Foreman, the champion. And people talk about him stepping over Mike Tyson's straight body to get to Buster Douglas. And I remember even when Gerald McClellan lost, to Nigel Benn, and the dire effect that had on his health and his life and his future. When McClellan, I presume, must have been stretchered off already and taken from the scene and rushed to hospital. Nigel Benn was in the ring, emotional, on a high, saying, "No, maybe you start believing in the Dark Destroyer." And then Don King is still hanging around schmoozing Nigel, saying, "You made a believer out of me." That was a little questionable. Not that I realize this is not a news flash, by the way, but you know what I mean. It's
unlike a lot of the more commercial sports, boxing is always going to, you're going to see the raw essence of an individual. You're always, generally you're going to see, the ugly sides of individuals when they're put in situations and they're not primed and propped, ready to answer certain questions. So, once emotions are exposed, you get to see who you're really dealing with. And in moments like that, you look at individuals, and I don't know, it just causes you to question everything.
I also know, I was thinking about this the other day because Luis Marciano, who is Rocky Marciano's nephew, he's on Facebook, right? You've seen him.
Yes, yes.
He's
staunch.
I swear to God, I swear that he likes a couple of libations at a certain point in the evening, and you can read his energy sometimes when he may have had a couple. Because he was saying, I said something like J. Russell Peltz, it was a quote or whatever, and he was like, promoters are nothing. We don't look up to them. They look up to our family, not the other way around. And there's times when I feel like saying, you know what? Hey, listen, it's all right. That was your uncle. You didn't do any fighting. Rocky did all of that. All that legacy is Rocky's. It's not yours, Lewis. It ain't yours at all.
Yes.
And he was saying promoters ain't fuck all and all the rest of it. And you may idolize them, Ben, or you may look up to them and put them on a pedestal, but I certainly don't. We don't, and blah blah blah.
And
but
who do you mean by we? When he said we, was he speaking French or was he?
Yeah, I can only assume so, or maybe it was the royal we. I don't know. Oh, could it have been the we system? Like the kind of Xbox
PlayStation thing.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to go along with your kind of slightly cryptic kind of humor at this point. I'm getting a feel for it now. But I remember you once saying, let's not over-celebrate promoters. You said it's not rocket science, right? Or at least you don't imagine it is. Yeah? Is that? I mean,
what part isn't rocket science, sir?
You once said, let's not lionize promoters beyond reality. It's not rocket science. You said that.
Yeah. No, it really isn't. And I always feel like I have a hard time in a lot of ways understanding what promoters do and why they always get the lion's share. Is it because they put up the money? You know what I mean? Like, what is it about what they do that guarantees them the lion's share?
Well, they lose money as well, obviously, Michael. And if they don't have television, it's a whole different game and a whole different level of stress and struggle.
Well, that's certainly when somebody's really good. If they're successful promoting boxing without TV, right? But these days there are just so many ways to monetize. To monetize being a boxing promoter.
Well, let me ask you this then. Eddie Hearn will get in the Hall of Fame. That will happen, right? He will be in a Hall of Famer like his dad, Barry Hearn. Frank Warren is already in there. Do you think, is that a valid award as far as you're concerned? Or do you take the view, okay, so you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Your dad had already built up this massive sporting company, Colossus, and he said you could run the boxing. You did it. All right, Eddie has taken it to another level, and he's worked hard at it. But do you feel that's a Hall of Fame worthy accolade, or do you just think that's a simple case of a reasonably bright son getting on with the family business that his dad already built?
There is that. There is that. When you see somebody like, oh my God, who's the welterweight kid? I'm sorry, I've taken too many shots in my time. Oh my God, he beat Mark Breland. He beat Marlon Starling.
Yeah, I knew you meant him.
Yeah, when you say Marlon Starling isn't in the Boxing Hall of Fame, and then a promoter who, I mean, promoters aren't fighters. I understand that, but there has to be some. It has to make sense.
Yeah, so don't confuse it with that. You either don't believe in the non-participants category, or you do, but they're not the expensive fighters. See, I don't think Marlon Starling should be in the Hall of Fame. You and Iceman John Scully are trying to tell me he should. I think he was fantastic. I love Moochie. What a good fighter. But I should be able to say that about certain fighters from the pantheon of boxing history without putting them all in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I might think that about Kirtland Lang. All right, I don't realize he doesn't have the body of work that Marlon had. But you're saying because he beat Lloyd Honeyghan and Mark Breland, essentially, he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he also beat Simon Brown. He also beat
Simon Brown. Okay, that's a good win.
That's a great win. Simon Brown was undefeated. He hadn't lost, and he beat him. I mean, it's interesting because boxing, like, it doesn't have. It isn't the you can't judge it the conventional way. It always ends up being who you personally like.
No, but it shouldn't be because I love him. If it was about that, I would have him in there.
If
If that's all it was about, I just don't. I think he is close, but no cigar. It's as simple as that. Okay, you said
and then at that point, that's when people start bringing in other fighters who are in the Hall of Fame that haven't had the success, that haven't beat the names that he has.
No, you're right, and this is the problem. But I must admit, I'm not a fan of that low bar argument. I'm not a fan of that. Let's open the floodgates because we've already.
No, I don't say open the floodgates, but I'm saying there has to be some sort of rationale behind it. Then, because it looks like it's being chosen just on what you feel about an individual. Sorry, missed that one. There was a statement that just came through, but I missed it.
What's that? A comment that just came through?
Yeah, there was.
I'm just flashing them up there. I'm flashing them up there so people can see we're acknowledging them, and we may take some of those points while we're talking organically. But I'm not saying you have to clock them all if you're already in midstream. You understand?
All right. Okay, I've learned something.
Should Jimmy Young and Jerry Quarry be in the Hall of Fame? There's another one, for instance. I don't think either of them should be in the Hall of Fame. No.
Well. Okay, so Jerry Quarry, he never won the world title.
No, and back then you're right to use the language of the world title. It's bogus phrase today, but yes, back then you can say that.
And Jimmy Young, that's. I mean, he beat George Foreman.
Yeah,
but I don't.
Some people think he beat Ali.
No, he didn't. Come on, First of all, every time he stuck his head out the ropes, that's counted as a knockdown. He gave himself up. So what did he get knocked down 3 times in that fight? If that's the case, then he didn't win.
Who are we talking about? What? Who?
Jimmy Young. When Jimmy Young fought Ali, and whenever
he didn't get
Ali
knocked down any of the time. He didn't get knocked down at all.
Yes, he did. Of course he did. It was scored a knockdown. He stuck his head out the ropes. You're giving yourself up.
Oh, yeah, he was leaning at the ropes. So he wasn't floored.
But Ben, who in life? I mean, I was like, what was I? I must have been like about 11 or 12. I wasn't even boxing at the time when that happened. Who sticks their head out the ropes? And like, I was like,
yeah, I'm not recommending it, Silk. I just don't recall any knockdowns. Now you've clarified it. I see what you mean.
Yeah, and that's what they were scored at. So if every time he stuck his head out the ropes, that's a knockdown, then he didn't win the fight.
No, listen, it was a terrible fight, and it was Ali in that period when, Ali could have walked away perhaps after the Fraser third fight, the Thriller Manila. That would have been the perfect moment for him to have gone from a beautiful legacy point of view. If you're talking about a trophy on the mantelpiece and you're polishing it before it gets too chipped and tarnished, and you want to put it in a glass case and never touch it again, that would have been the time, Well,
but even still, that was too late. The Manila fight.
It probably was for his health, Silk.
Yes, for his health. On the health side, that was.
You know what? Mickey Duff thinks he should have given up after the second Fraser fight. He said he doesn't think. I got to disagree with Mickey on this, but Mickey says he doesn't think that the Foreman fight greatly enhanced Ali's legacy or made a difference. Which he's completely wrong about that. By the way,
yeah. I think on the Foreman fight, after the Foreman fight, that should have been it, the last one. And I think that it's crazy. It's like people didn't know that if you take a punch, if you get hit that often, there are going to be repercussions of that sort. Because there were fighters before Ali who ended up with, who had punch drunk syndrome and all that kind of
sure.
What
King Levinsky always springs to mind when the guy who said, Joe Louis took me from being a contender to a guy selling ties just like that. And he wasn't the full shilling. I remember, I think it was Ali in his autobiography that he cites King Levinsky as one of the examples of a punch-drunk fighter, and a kind of warning potential portent of things to come. Yeah,
you know what? And it's really scary because you realize it and you talk about it, but it's happening to you every time you're stepping in the ring and every time you're sparring. And not having the individuals, like, it's very important to have people that look out for you.
Yeah.
In the ring. But they get caught up in the circus. They get caught up in the fight. They get caught up in the energy, and they forget it as well. People see you as an object and not a human anymore. And they want you to fight for pride's sake, or they believe in you and they don't see the downside of that
And
belief.
you know what? That is why. This show's called Nevermind the Bollocks, by the way, which was kind of reference to the Sex Pistols' only album. But and
What
we
are
were talking
bollocks?
about,
What are bollocks?
well,
Is it like mollusks? Are they underwater sea things?
No, they're not. They're it's basically a slang term for testicles, but it is a youth. But it's also an effective term, a slang term for nonsense. Like that's bollocks. Don't talk bollocks. Silk.
Oh,
Stop
like
talking
BS.
bollocks. Don't be a contrarian. Don't talk bollocks. You know, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
you mean like bullshit?
Yeah, absolutely like that. So the
okay.
Sex Pistols' first album was called Nevermind the Bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. Gary was saying, could we talk about the KSI blah, blah, blah thing, Fury thing? And I said, okay, but can we call it Nevermind the Bollocks? You know, as in Nevermind the Bollocks. And I think we've segued away from it really well. Gary dropped out, by the way, because his Wi-Fi in the hotel stopped working because he's in Los Angeles and he's in a hotel right now and he lost the...
It's LA for you.
Exactly. So, but I think we have actually done a really good job of not minding the bollocks for the last half an hour, just on our own here. So, you know, props.
Excuse me, coughing a little bit there. But I think boxing is always going to be that attraction. What are bollocks? A question just came through. Interesting. Boxing's always going to give you that. They're going to give you like the two extremes, the far left, the far right.
Yeah.
And
and that's the thing, you know, to some people, you talk about damage, pugilistic dementia. I think you said it the other way around. And some people say that's why it's great, you know, fair play to Tommy Fury. He's making gazillions of pounds. Or, you know what, I don't know what he's getting, but I know it's hideous. It's a crazy amount, you know, for what it is. 6-rounder against some Muppet. But who's also getting loads of money, by the way. And is getting loads of money because he sells like what is basically a glorified kind of cordial drink for loads of money because it's hip and all the kids will fall over themselves for it because humans are intrinsically not very intelligent.
But isn't that all marketing 101? I mean, that's just the basis of selling anything. It's like people are attracted to what they like, and that's all there is to it.
Well, but no, people are attracted to what they think they like, and people are attracted to what is said to be cool and is invested with a certain status that makes them think they're cool.
They obviously think it's cool themselves. They must think it's cool. They're attracted to that individual in order to follow what he does. There's something about him, and so it's based on popularity. Is based on personality. It's not based.
It's funny you say that because I'm thinking of the KSI phenomenon, and I've met him. Right, I met him in the gym. And spoke to him for a bit. I recorded a video of me skipping next to him. And I guess I was being a bit mischievous. What I was trying to prove is this guy got no rhythm. And he can't skip very well. And look what he looks like next to somebody who can. You know, so... But I felt a bit guilty about those impulses because obviously you get talking to him, you think he's a nice guy, and that is the big thing that is the great principle eroder sometimes.
Exactly, it's attraction. Look at it like this. Here's a perfect case.
But I was about to say to you before we got off there, I was about to say to you, he's a nice guy. He is not a charismatic guy, and to my eye, he is not an especially good-looking guy either. So what I'm saying is, what is it when you talk about charisma? He doesn't seem especially good-looking or charismatic or interesting. And I don't know what it is about him, even remotely, that made him such. Well, I guess something has happened clearly.
Yeah, I guess attraction happens on many different levels and many different ways. So I don't know what his attraction would be, but look at like Sugar Ray Leonard, for instance, right? Incredible talent.
Yeah,
there are people that don't know anything about boxing that love him only because they're based on his personality. They don't know boxing at all.
But especially a lot of women.
They can't tell you if he's technically better than Pistol Pete Ranzani or Vito Cuevas or maybe some guy off the street. They can't tell you that.
But back in the day,
they love him because they relate to him. There's something about him that relates to people.
But back in the day, that was an extra factor that helped you make it and it helped you maximize your earnings so long as you were the goods.
But it's still relevant today. It's like
but don't you understand? Today you don't even need the goods. You just have that and you'll be fine. Or as long as people tune into it. You understand that in the old days you had to be able to fight as well. Otherwise, it was meaningless.
Yeah, but I guess, I mean, unless it was a tough man contest, you know what I mean? I mean, look at Butterbean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he couldn't even beat a marginal, not even a marginal professional boxer, a real guy that did it.
Well, yeah, because he lost to a guy in the gym, in Gleason's gym, called Mitchell Rose, who was like an off-beaten journman type.
Yeah,
who lost more fights than he won, but he beat Butterbean.
He stepped up to the real fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it seems now that the cult of personality has gotten to the point. Before it was a bonus and it was an enhancer of a person's career profile and earnings, whereas now it's literally all that seems to matter. That's what I feel. The transition has occurred.
I missed the last part.
I feel that's what's happened in this era. That is the transition we've seen. That no longer is it an addition to talent and substance. It's literally can be instead of.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is that the people that can qualify your greatness, like being great and being popular, are two different things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, somebody who's boxed for a living wants to be great. They don't want to be popular. People who don't take it that way and don't box for a living, they really don't care about being great. They want to be popular. They're in it for popularity, and they'll do anything in order to be popular. You see people, do what do they call that stuff where they parkour, where they're jumping off buildings and
free running.
Yeah, all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like they're doing it to be popular. They have a need to be popular, and if there's an element of danger to it, you know what I mean? There is. I mean, there's the guy with the Australian kid who's unfortunately like a stingray or something pierced his heart.
Yeah, Steve something.
Yeah, and things like that. I don't know if he's an animal expert. I don't know if he has if he's educated in that, but certainly, you know what I mean? He's getting likes and he's getting paid because of, he's doing things that the normal person wouldn't actually.
Steve Irwin.
Yeah, so we're living through somebody else. Steve Irwin. Thank you very much, SA1 BoxFit.
Yeah, I remember Family Guy had like a kind of cutaway one time when there was some guy in America, I don't know who it is even, but someone who did those jackass kind of stunts or did really gross things, for great entertainment. Yeah, and at some point the character goes, "Can I stop this? Does anybody out there like me yet?"
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, Jackass is great. Those guys. But it's all, you see how it's all related. It's all in popularity, and then if it's popularity, it translates to money right away in this day and age.
Yeah, well, because it's never been easier to market stuff. I mean, one of the advantages of that is obviously we're able to talk to an audience today, and we can chew the fat on boxing and see what direction we go in. We've got our own TV show, all right. It ain't that big as of this time, but we have it. In the old days, I mean, it's a better example from my point of view because you were famous and I wasn't, and you're older than me, and I used to see you on the cover of Ring magazine. So for someone to say there will come an era when you can have your own television show with Michael Olajide and Gary Stretch, you'd be like, well, that sounds pretty damn cool. So that is there's no point me complaining about the culture we live in today when it facilitates this kind of relationship,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I would use the term me being famous, loosely. You know what I mean?
You're famous in my world, in my subculture and your subculture.
Oh, shucks. Thank you. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, wasn't it amazing going to Atlantic City and just being among all those faces and
yeah,
you know what I mean? Those Yaki Lopez, meeting Yaki Lopez for the first time to me was just like mind blowing. And
this is the thing, you're still such a fan, and that's what I really like that about you, amongst other things, because you either get it or you don't. And when I've got Danny Little Red Lopez on video call with Mike Ayala, you said that's amazing and started filming it. Not everybody understands that.
No,
some people are like, okay, that's kind of cool, but yeah, so what? Yeah. Whereas to you, it hits you in the gut, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just made me think, like, of all the guys, like right now, like Curtis Parker and James Hard Rock Green. I do not see him down there.
No.
You know, I don't see him at the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. That's crazy. Those guys were Atlantic City. You know what I mean? They were the backbone of Atlantic City, and they should be there. So they really gotta start pulling guys back in there as well. And yeah, Yaki Lopez was a great fighter who never won a light heavyweight title, but gave every single fighter that he fought. I mean, he just laid everything on the line. His heart was insane, and his ability was incredible. And the guy is like, he was still so clear of all the fighters I've ever seen fight. If you were to say, if there's one guy that should not have all his faculties there, and that's Yaki Lopez. I mean, he should be punch drunk simply off the Matthew Saad Muhammad fight.
That's what doesn't make sense. And I think there must be an element of genetics or luck or whatever it is. Yeah. Because, like you said, I mean, we saw various past greats and leading lights. It was actually two weeks ago. I said 3 the other day. This time, 2 weeks ago, we got back to New York,
Yeah.
But we saw various guys who were diminished, without mentioning names. We saw guys who you feel it's a little bit unfortunate because they can't talk so well as they used to, and they might not remember things.
Yeah.
But like you say, it makes no sense. If you met Yaki Lopez and he was muffled and doddering, you'd be like, oh, well, that figures. But he's absolutely fine, isn't he? He's sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
It does make sense. I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy myself. And Abid said, what happened to Frank the Animal Fletcher? That's another one. Yeah, I would love to. I believe he is still alive.
I think he is. And it says Hagler didn't fight Fletcher. You know why, Joe? Hagler didn't fight Fletcher because Juan Roldan knocked him out on the undercard of Hagler Duran in November 1983. And so Roldan got the shot instead. Fletcher would have got the shot if it had been Roldan. Because they did that back then, didn't they, Michael? It was a bit more all right, it was the only division that had one champion, but certainly Hagler was the world champion. There was an eliminator to fight him. If you won it, you got it. And if you lost, you didn't. It was kind of simple then, wasn't it? Almost naive.
Yeah, it really was simple. And that's the beauty of boxing back in those days, which, it's gone now. It's, you have to come with, I mean, you need the social media following. You need, I don't know, people have to be attracted to you in a way. There's a story. There has to be a story they can.
But meanwhile, like I say, there was 2 good fighters who defended world titles this weekend, and they were put in the shade by this other thing that's going on. Quite how serious it is, and whether we should barricade things in and declare a siege war mentality, or whether we should have an enlightened attitude towards it, I don't know. For the most part, Michael, I feel I should ignore it. I really do. I wouldn't report it on my page. This is a bit different. And,
I mean, certainly not with any reverence.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it can be talked about in passing, or if it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean anything. But like, for instance, there was another legitimate fight, and we didn't mention it at all, pretty much. And I didn't, because I didn't see it, but I did see the I did see the KSI like a highlight, because it just was up and social media was there. So I took a look at it, and then I saw they were complaining about each other, and KSI was really upset that he lost, and that he said he lost because of the boxing establishment didn't want him to win. Imagine a video board or whatever he does beating one of their fighters, and I'm like, he's not one of our fighters. I don't know.
I'm not. I am disowning Tommy Fury before you try and lay him at my door. Don't drop him at my doorstep, Alan Matthew Saad Muhammad, please. I have not adopted him.
On that note, I unfortunately have to bid you adieu, because I have a steak dinner awaiting me, and fighters and steaks, you can't keep them apart for too long.
No, I understand that. You need that protein, all that fine muscle mass, and male magnificence doesn't maintain itself. Enjoy that steak. Yeah, keep doing those pull-ups. Listen, guys, thank you for listening. Sorry we lost Gary at some point along the way, but he'll be back shortly next week. In the meantime, be lucky. Keep punching.